Hi. Thanks for calling the voice line. You know, with this country on the verge of war, it's getting pretty hard to take my line of work, doing voices for radio commercials, all that seriously. In fact, it's getting so that more and more, every time I'm in the studio for a session, I feel just a little bit more hypocritical and guilty. It's like I'm part of this massive conspiracy to lure unsuspecting people into spending all their money on image-enhancing products that in reality they little need nor ill can afford. The strange thing is, the more guilty I feel about this situation, the better my work is. My delivery has improved tenfold since the Iraqi crisis. I work 4 or 5 times a week. I've even upped my rates. Just think what would happen in the event of an all-out war. Thinking about it almost makes it worth thinking about. But as good as I get at my work, I'll still be only a mouthpiece, a conduit for someone else's concepts, a faceless spokesman for companies who want you to believe their advertising campaigns only a little bit more than they want to believe in them themselves. Now, what do you think? Am I cutting my own throat here? Biting the hands that feed me by verbalizing these thoughts on a demo line? An audio billboard for the commodity that I have become? I don't know. I can't answer that. But I do know this. This country has a long and proud tradition of lying to its own people to serve its own best interests. And advertising is only one small part of that conspiracy. Regardless of what I may have told you over the radio, nothing you can buy will make you a better person, a happier person, a more spiritually connected person, can provide you with the things in life that are truly important to the soul. There are things that can never be turned into commodities and marketed. And these things must be searched for within each of us individually. Our future as a country is built upon lies and deception. And if you don't think that you're only 3 paychecks away from that disgusting bum you just passed on the street, then you too are part of that deception. No matter how much money you have, the sad fact remains that regardless of what color Porsche or BMW or Lamborghini you have, you will never be one of George Bush's rich friends. George Bush does not want you to be his friend. George Bush does not care enough about you to even dislike you. You cannot afford to buy your way into his country club. It does not matter if you're a slave in the fields, or a slave in the office, or a slave in the big house on the hill. You're still a slave, and at best, a middle management slave, prodding and whipping and abusing those beneath you in a desperate fervor, praying that you will suddenly find yourself a part of that inner circle. Believe me, you will be dead long before you get close to that inner circle, and you will be replaced the very next day by yet another well-groomed, well-oiled, eager, well-meaning, brown-nosing slave. This year's model. Recently, we observed the imploding of communism in Eastern Europe. Now, what do you think brought all that about? Was it because the communist system was flawed and doomed to collapse from its very inception? No, I don't think so. I think it was because of the ineffective, greedy, myopic, and insensitive bureaucrats who were charged with the responsibility of keeping the machine running. Interesting parallel, don't you think? They're not all that different from the ineffective, greedy, myopic, and insensitive bureaucrats charged with the responsibility of keeping our machine running. But rather than choose to evict them, as was the case in Russia, all too often, we choose to emulate them, to ape their postures, their uniforms, their speech patterns and phraseology. But remember what I said. George Bush and his rich friends do not need you in their country club. Stop acting like you're next on the docket, because you aren't. Stop acting like everything is all right, because it isn't. Nothing is all right. And if you can look around you at the state of this country and not secretly admit to yourself that our system is just as vulnerable as theirs, and that their dominoes just happened to fall first, then either you're truly one of George Bush's rich friends, or else you're truly ignorant. And all I know is that George Bush's rich friends probably would not be calling this number to hear my demo line. It's the top 3% who really call the shots in this corporate fiefdom we lovingly sing to in all of those patriotic songs. If you're fortunate enough to be working right now, remember, you're working at least 3 of those days to pay off your accrued interest charges and to help fund a government that can't even help you feel safe as you stand in line to cash what's left of your paycheck. That 3% at the top, the real inner circle, is bleeding you dry. It's bleeding this country dry, not to mention what's left of this planet. And as we trip over each other in our rush to emulate our leaders, we wallow like pigs in the waste of our abundance, oblivious to our inevitable slaughter. And why do we continue to do this? Why do we continue to remain on this treadmill to oblivion? Why can't we learn from our collective histories? And how can I give so freely of my talents and my art to the continued perpetration of this hoax? I don't know. I can't answer that. Freedom without structure is anarchy. Structure without freedom is fascism. What are you, an anarchist or a fascist? You cannot afford the initiation fee to George Bush's country club. Remember, capitalism is not democracy. Convenience is not freedom. And the government is not your friend. Thank you for calling.
Thank you for listening.
The Voice Line.